Art and Hope. Leo was a young man with big dreams. He loved to paint. His art was not in galleries or museums, it was on the walls of the city. Bright colours, bold shapes and beautiful stories. His work brought life to grey streets. People often stopped to admire his work, but few knew the struggles behind it. Leo's love for painting began when he was a child. His father gave him a small paintbrush one day. From then on, Leo painted everywhere he could, on paper, on the walls of his room, and even on the kitchen table. His mother would laugh, but his father would frown. "Leo, painting won't pay the bills," his father often said. But Leo didn't stop. As he grew older, Leo dreamed of becoming a famous artist. He wanted to share his colours and ideas with the world. But life was not easy. Leo didn't have much money and art supplies were expensive. Still, he refused to give up. He walked around the city, looking at the dull grey walls. They seemed sad and empty. He thought, "I can change this. I can bring colour to these streets." One evening, Leo found an old can of paint in a small shop. The shop owner saw the hope in his eyes and said, "Take it, young man. Show the world something beautiful." That night, Leo went to a quiet alley. With the moonlight guiding him, he painted a big, colourful tree on the wall. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful. The next morning, people walked by the wall and stopped. They smiled, took pictures, and talked about the painting. For the first time, Leo felt proud. He realized he could make people happy with his art, but his journey was just beginning, and it wouldn't be without challenges. There's much more to Leo's story. Let me tell you what happened next. Leo's colourful tree became the talk of the neighbourhood. People passed by the alley just to see it. Some even brought their friends to take pictures. It was as if the grey wall had come alive, bringing joy to everyone who saw it. Leo felt inspired to paint more. He wanted to fill the city with art, but not everyone was happy. One morning, Leo saw a man in a uniform standing near the wall. The man was from the city council. "Who painted this wall?" he asked in a serious voice. Leo was scared but stepped forward. "I did," he said quietly. The man frowned. "You cannot paint on public property without permission," he said and left. Leo's heart sank. He didn't want to break the rules, but he also didn't want to stop painting. He decided to find another way. That evening, he gathered some cardboard pieces and paints. If he couldn't paint on walls, he would paint on cardboard and display them in the streets. He worked all night, creating small, colourful pieces. By morning, he placed them in a park where people often walked. To his surprise, the paintings caught everyone's attention. People stopped, admired the art, and even left a few coins as a token of appreciation. Leo used the money to buy more paint. Days turned into weeks, and Leo became a familiar face in the park. People began to recognize him as the street artist. Some even talked to him, asking about his work and his dreams. Leo shared his story with a smile, but deep inside, he wished for a bigger stage. He dreamed of painting something that everyone in the city would see. One evening, a kind old woman stopped by his display. She looked at his work carefully and said, "You have a gift, young man. Don't let anyone take it away from you." Her words stayed with Leo as he packed up his things that night. He knew his journey was far from over and he was ready to take the next step. Leo's paintings in the park became more popular each day. People from different parts of the city came to see his art. Some left encouraging notes, while others invited him to paint for small events. For the first time, Leo felt like his work was being appreciated. It gave him the courage to dream bigger. One morning, as Leo was setting up his paintings, a man in a suit approached him. The man introduced himself as Alex, a gallery owner. "Your work is unique," Alex said. "Have you ever thought about displaying it in a gallery?" Leo's eyes widened. He had never imagined such an opportunity. "But I'm just a street artist," he replied hesitantly. Alex smiled. "Every great artist starts somewhere. Think about it." That night, Leo couldn't sleep. The thought of his paintings in a gallery seemed unreal, but he also felt a spark of hope. He decided to take a chance. The next day he met Alex at his gallery. The space was big with white walls and bright lights. It was nothing like the streets where Leo usually worked. "This is where your art belongs," Alex said, showing him the empty walls. Over the next week, Leo worked tirelessly. He created new paintings, each one telling a different story. He painted the city's skyline, children playing in the park, and even the colourful tree that had started it all. Each piece was a reflection of his journey and his dreams. Finally, the day of the gallery opening arrived. Leo stood nervously at the entrance watching as people walked in. To his surprise, the room quickly filled with visitors. They admired his work, asked him questions, and even bought some of his paintings. For the first time, Leo felt like he was part of something bigger. But amidst the joy, there was a small voice in his heart reminding him of the streets. He remembered the alley where it all began and the people who had encouraged him along the way. He knew his story wasn't just about success, it was about staying true to himself and his art. As the gallery opening ended, Alex approached Leo with a broad smile. "You did it, Leo," he said, handing him an envelope. Inside was a check, more money than Leo had ever seen. It felt like a dream, but deep down, Leo knew this was only the beginning. The next day, Leo returned to his usual spot in the park. His heart told him that he couldn't forget where his journey started. The park was quiet in the early morning, and Leo felt a sense of peace. He set up his easel and began painting. This time his canvas showed the faces of the people who had supported him, passers-by who stopped to admire his work, children who laughed as they watched him paint, and the old man who had once said, "Never give up." As the hours passed, people gathered again, just like before. Some recognized him from the gallery event. They congratulated him and asked about his new projects. Leo smiled and said, "I'm still the same artist. I just have a bigger canvas now." One afternoon, a young boy stopped by. He carried a small notebook filled with sketches. "I want to be like you one day," the boy said shyly. Leo looked at the boy's drawings and saw a spark of talent. "You already are," Leo replied, handing the boy one of his brushes. Never stop drawing, no matter what. Leo began teaching the boy and others who came to watch. His spot in the park became more than just a place for painting. It became a place for sharing and learning. Slowly, a small community of artists formed, each one inspired by Leo's story and determination. Through it all, Leo never forgot his roots. He split his time between the gallery and the streets, ensuring that his success didn't distance him from the people who believed in him first. The park became a symbol of hope, not just for Leo but for everyone who came there to dream. Years passed and Leo's name grew in the art world. His work was displayed in galleries across the country. Critics praised his unique style, calling it art from the heart. But Leo still loved the park the most. He would visit often, setting up his easel and painting as if it were his first day. One morning a journalist came to the park to interview him. "Leo," she asked, "why do you still come here? You're a famous artist now. You could paint anywhere." Leo looked around at the familiar trees, the benches, and the people who stopped to watch him work. "This is where it all began," he said. "These streets taught me how to dream. They showed me that art isn't just about fame or money. It's about connection. Every painting I create carries a piece of this park." The journalist smiled and wrote down his words. The story of Leo's humble beginnings touched many people when it was published. More visitors came to the park, not just to see Leo, but to feel the inspiration his story brought. One of those visitors was Sarah, the woman who had first noticed Leo's talent in the rain years ago. She brought a framed photo of that rainy day, showing Leo holding his painting under the dripping trees. "I knew you'd make it," she said, her voice filled with pride. Leo thanked her and hung the photo in his small studio next to his awards and paintings. It was a reminder of the journey he had taken and the people who had made it possible. He realized that his story wasn't just about one artist, it was about a community that believed in the power of dreams. Leo's life became a testament to resilience and hope, showing that even the smallest beginnings can lead to incredible things. He continued to paint, teach, and inspire, proving that art could change lives, starting with his own. Leo's influence went beyond his paintings. He began to teach young artists who, like him, had little but their dreams. Every weekend he held free workshops in the park, inviting anyone who wanted to learn. Children, teenagers, and even older adults came with pencils, brushes, and open hearts. One day a boy named Sam approached Leo. He was shy and carried a small notebook filled with sketches. "Mr. Leo," Sam said, "do you think I can be an artist too?" Leo looked at Sam's drawings. They were rough but full of emotion. "Sam," he said, "art isn't about being perfect. It's about telling your story. If you believe in yourself and work hard, you can be anything you want." Sam's eyes lit up with hope. From that day, he became one of Leo's most dedicated students. Seeing himself in the young boy, Leo worked hard to guide him, just as the people in the park had once supported him. Years later, the park was no longer just a place for casual strolls. It had become a hub of creativity, filled with artists of all ages. The walls around the park displayed murals painted by Leo and his students, turning the area into a gallery open to everyone. Leo's legacy grew, but he remained humble. He still painted in the same spot, greeting everyone with a warm smile. The locals began calling the park Leo's Corner, honoring the man who had turned it into a symbol of hope. One evening, as the sun set and the park glowed with soft light, Leo stood before a crowd gathered to celebrate his contributions. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This park gave me a chance when I had nothing. I only wanted to pass that gift to others. The crowd erupted in applause, and Leo felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. His journey from a struggling street artist to a mentor and inspiration had come full circle, and in his heart he knew that the park, with its trees and benches, would always be home.